All right, guys, here I am, joined by Andrew, the one, the only awesome human being. So anyway, we're just going to talk a little bit today. I've got some, I got some notes here. I'm going to be your the good host and get to know him a little bit, because at the start of these things, I was just telling him we had you send this stuff over to kind of like help this conversation flow. But I didn't know a lot of this stuff about you. So I've read it now, but now we're going to get into it, right?
Oh,
so go ahead, introduce yourself and maybe talk a little bit at the start of all this. So the first thing that we have up here is like, I didn't know you lived in Hawaii.
A little bit.
A little bit,
Like
and Minnesota.
Yeah.
Two opposites.
So my name is Andrew Smrecek. Let me say that name slow.
Yeah.
Smrecek. I own Combat Art Training. I do training classes and nylon gear, mostly like gunfight oriented, like, they say tactical training classes, but also doing some performance shooting because that is important. And then the gear I make right now, it's just me sewing. So it's kind of like I come up with a cool design, and now I've caught up with my online orders, so I'm just going to do drops of like, here's what I got, buy it now, and then it'll disappear, and then I'll do it again later.
Right.
But yeah, so I guess my kind of like growing up bio would be born in Hawaii, and then before I was 1 year old, I moved to Minnesota. My dad was a Marine, and he was stationed in Hawaii, and my mom was there too.
But you still get to say, yeah, I lived in Hawaii for a little bit.
Yeah, and I only went back there, I went back there once for my grandma's funeral, and then I spent a summer out there before high school, and, one thing, Hawaii's beautiful, but I would never want to live there. It's like you're very landlocked with shitty gun laws and stuff like that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, dude.
They're not so much landlocked, waterlocked, I guess. I
It almost means the same thing.
You can't travel to lots of places. You can see the whole thing in one day.
Right.
But so growing up in Minnesota, divorced parents, and it was I ended up living with my dad later in life, and he was former Marine, then Army National Guard, and he went to Iraq like around the same time Yeager did, contracting back like 03, 04, and so when he got back, like I saw all the pictures, the videos, got to meet all his friends and stuff. They're all telling stories, and I was like, oh, I want that. I want to go down Route Irish in a shitty Humvee. It was very much like that's cool to my brain. And growing up, it was like I was into playing guns and
nice.
Watching war movies, like probably seen even like Predator like 200 times on VHS. But I was very much into that. Like I played sports, I played football quite a bit, did a little bit of wrestling, but like I didn't care about watching football. It was not like I enjoyed playing as long as my team was good, and then when my team wasn't good, I was like, I'm done with football. But it was like my major interest pretty much was military, and then also play guitar, and you and I talk about metal a lot. So coming out of high school, I did not want a normal job. I did not want to go to college. I did but now we'll do more school. I was done with it. So I basically was like, I either want to be in a touring death metal band. I was perfectly fine being like, even though I had no concept of really what crushing debt could feel like. I was like, I'll go into crushing debt to have people at a show. That'd be great. I don't care, know. Or I want to do something with the guns, something military. And so I was like, either I want a band or I want to go to Afghanistan. And well, I didn't actually have a band. So.
Yeah.
So
that's funny. Yeah, you don't get to just go and fill out a piece of paper to like join a band typically, right?
Right.
But if you want to go like fresh out of high school, all you gotta do is fill out some paperwork. You're gonna be over there like back in those days, right?
But yeah, so I enlisted in the Marine Corps, and there's a whole funny story on that where my dad didn't want me to do it, and he was like, "I'll kick you out of the house if you do it." But I did it.
Yeah.
I actually had I was really a bad student at that time because I just didn't care about school anymore.
Right.
And so I kind of did this trickster thing where I had my stepdad call the school and say that I had to go do a thing. And then what I actually did is I went and enlisted in the Marine Corps, went to MEPS, went through that process, and then finished high school and went after that.
Very cool. Yeah.
So that was kind of the start of this, but like the whole gun thing has always been an interest. Like doing something that doesn't really involve like guns and stuff is boring to me.
Right.
I mean, guitar's cool.
Yeah.
There's stuff that's fun. I'm fat right now, but fucking working out, I'm really into also. Or that's been a thing where like when I do it, it like consumes me. Like when I first started this business, it was actually a problem, and I would use the gym as a procrastination tool.
Right.
So
productive procrastination.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I'm getting something done. It's just not what I'm supposed to be doing
Once
right now.
everything is perfectly clean, I'll start doing the work I should do. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So you mentioned either wanting to do the band or the military, and of course, obviously, you ended up doing the military. But this is just for me. So this is for me. What were you listening to? So when did you graduate?
2011.
2011. Okay.
On time.
On time. Yeah. All right. So what were you listening to back then? Like what was your like drive? Because I was a big Lamb of God fan.
I got a Lamb of God tattoo.
Yeah.
That was the first
Ashes
tattoo
of the Wake, right?
Yep. And so at that time, Lamb of God, Slayer, Job for a Cowboy, All Shall Perish. A little bit of Whitechapel. The big four I was always into, as in Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, Slayer, and it was kind of like I went through a cycle of being like Metallica is my favorite, then Megadeth is my favorite, then Anthrax is my favorite, and then I got the correct answer, Slayer is my favorite. And,
right. That's typically the journey, I think. Like where you land on those four is typically, I think, where you end up getting what type of metal you end up liking more, like later on, right?
Yeah. The hard thing now is like I'm trying to become a good Christian. And now I'm like, all right, there's like a bunch of Slayer songs I should not sing along to.
Listen, that's all right.
And then the crazier metal I like pretty much all of them I shouldn't sing along to.
You can't understand the words anyway, so
exactly.
It doesn't matter.
So
very cool. No, man, I went through a very similar progression. Like I found out about Metallica, of course, and then I was like, oh, Megadeth. Oh, like yeah, of course Megadeth is better. And then it was like Anthrax, and then when I heard Slayer, I was like, oh yeah, like here we go. Excellent. Yeah. So I was listening to the same stuff back then. Dude, and Lamb of God just put out a new album not too long ago.
The thing I feel bad about is that anytime a band I love puts out something new, I don't like it till like 5-10 years later.
It's got to mature a little bit, right?
It literally took like 6 years for me to like the Wrath album from Lamb of God, and I was like, oh, okay, this is good.
Right. Yeah. It's tough whenever you're really invested into like this artist, right? And you develop this like you like this sound they developed in this time frame. They have to grow. Like they can't keep making the same music because then people complain, oh, they never change, right? So it takes a little bit. Very cool. So just to get back onto the military stuff, you were in the infantry. And everything, right?
Yeah.
So
that was funny too because so like the reason why my dad was like, I'll kick you out of the house if you join. It was like he could get me any MOS, like E3 out of boot camp. Like he was a recruiter, and we had a family friend who was a recruiter, and so I had the hookup to enlist in the Army, either National Guard or regular Army. But he was like, you need to talk to the Marine Corps first, and I did, and I was like, hey, like I like this more, and I love my dad, but like it didn't play well. So my thing was like, again, like if I'm joining the military, like I want to do that stuff. I want to do the infantry stuff. If I wanted to do something that could prepare me for life outside of the military, I would just stay outside the military.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
If I wanted to, they kind of pitch you like, oh, you become an engineer, then you're good at building stuff. You can get into construction. Like, yeah, or you just go do construction. You know?
Right.
And it was funny because a lot of the things I had in my head about like, now that doesn't make sense, turned out to be true. Like there's a thing called security forces where, you more go guard stuff, right? And you achieve rank faster than the normal infantry, but you have to do a longer contract. I was like, if I do that, I'm not going to get to go to Afghanistan. And then what's going to happen is that I will have higher rank than everyone in the normal infantry. And when they send me back to the normal infantry, no one will respect me. And that turned out to be like 100% true. And I'm not like bashing dudes that are non-infantry. Of course, back, when I was 20 years old, I totally would, but I've matured past that. That shit's stupid. But like it was like the thing I wanted to do, and like all my short-term goals for entering the Marine Corps, like graduate everything on time, deploy, all that stuff, I achieved like right away, and that's a good lesson of like, okay, when you're close to your goal, you need to set a new goal, like something bigger.
Yeah. And having a clearly defined goal is probably a good option. It's funny you bring up the choosing not to take advantage of some of the things that you had to focus on this goal you had. I have a buddy, he doesn't watch the YouTube channel, so I'm going to tell this story, but he probably wouldn't want me to. But very similar story. His dad had a career in the military. He went to college first, got his 4-year degree. So like his dad was like, if you're going to join the military, like I can help you out. Your degree is going to help you do the higher rank and stuff like that, just from the start. And he said, no, I want to do infantry because if I'm going to be bossing those people around or telling them what to do, I want to know what it's like. So he did the 4-year contract, hated it, and bounced out.
Oh, okay. So he didn't want to become an officer or anything after that? Yeah.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, I thought going in, I'm like, I'm going to do 8 years and then become a contractor. No. Like having a kid, divorce, and all that definitely affects it. But also it's like, I don't know. It wasn't, at a certain point, once you've done the stuff you wanted to do, it just did not feel fulfilling, And a big thing too is like, I have a phrase is I hate teamwork, because it's like the military is complete group punishment. Right. And whenever I talk about military firearms training, like that's prevalent in there, as in there's a whole bunch of safety nonsense thrown on top of it, and they dumb it down, and that's a form of group punishment. Yeah. Like, hey, those 4 dudes out of these 100 dudes is not capable of performing at that level, so we're all going to drop down to that guy's level, and that's what we're going to teach at, and that's a standard we're going to hold to everyone.
Right.
So that was another thing. It was like just like when I was playing football, I loved football, and then once my team stopped giving a fuck about winning games, I wanted off the team. Right. I was like, I don't want to be here. Why am I getting slayed for people who don't care? And that also became a thing in the Marine Corps. They say the common phrase for it is calling it the suck. Embrace the suck. Right. Right. It's because every day sucks. Now, I found a way to trick myself, being like, hey, today's going to be the hardest day ever.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And guess what? I was never disappointed, And then, there's the false motivation that you use. So, like all the other companies in my unit would get off early, and it'd be like, fucking Charlie Company's off and it's only 3. And be like, oh boy, guys, that means we'll probably get off soon. And they're like, no, we're fucking not. I'm like, but we might,
Yeah.
And be like, this is the 8th formation we've had today. What the fuck? And I'd be like, oh boy, I can't wait to see my friends.
It's funny the mental toughness. That's kind of what you're touching on right there. Is finding these tricks to use it. There's one of Jay's friends does a talk over mental toughness, and that's actually one of the things that he mentions is like having these phrases or things that you tell yourself often to help push you in that direction of like, yes, it sucks, but I'm gonna get whatever it is, 3 more hours till I get to lay down or whatever, right? Or new day, new chance to be better or whatever,
Right.
So things like that.
John Lovell had one he mentioned where he's like, it's okay. Once I get to that pole right there, I walk up to that tree, I'm going to quit. And he just picked a new one every time.
Every time. Yeah.
And I'm like, I literally remember doing the same thing on hikes and shit.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. So I think I've heard you talk about this before, but you had the Magpul DVDs, right? Those get brought up a bunch.
Yeah.
How did those affect your journey into, like, did they push you into wanting to do like instructing stuff because you do combat art training and everything like that, or were you just like, I want to be cool like that?
Good question. So joining the Marine Corps, it was like, I want to be cool. That looking at it now, and even objectively back then, like I didn't join because I'm like, I want to serve my country. And it was, I want to do cool stuff.
Right.
I don't want to live a normal life. And so, man, I could go down another rabbit hole, but it's like, I look at the way a lot of people live. They're basically debt slaves, like, okay, they went to college. They own the cool car. They have the big house, the boat, and basically all that shit means is that you have to go to the place you hate and break your dick off and hate every day of your life so that you can have this bullshit, I didn't care about that,
right.
And then I just want to do something cool in my life. I want to do something besides that. I didn't want to have that. And so joining the Marine Corps, it was more like I just wanted to do cool shit.
Right.
Now, studying Physicus, when I did a class with him, we were talking about it, and it's like, no, a lot of guys join because they want to wear the cool kit, do the cool guy stuff, and say, I'm the cool guy. And you can look at my YouTube comments and see that that persona is still coming through, because a lot of those guys will never come take a training class. They don't take that part seriously. But basically, when I saw the Magpul DVDs, I had gotten, I had received them. They were sent to me when I was in Afghanistan, I think, or right before that. And I had them. I didn't care about them. I didn't want to look at them. Went to Afghanistan. Got to do a little bit of fighting. Nothing, crazy traumatic happened to me. But you deal with stuff after that. There was some shit where I'm like, okay, now I'm a little bit crazy. But I'm pretty well gone through that. But my experience was I'm very fortunate, with my experience compared to some people. And, but that inflated my ego, and I was like, okay, I'm Marine Corps infantry. I went to Afghanistan, got to shoot at people, got shot at, and now I am that top level. The only people better than me are SF guys, but and then we'll invent some reason why Marines are better. They always do.
Right, yeah.
They're like, basically the equivalent to a Marine is a Ranger in the Army. Like, no, dude. I'm like, because that guy over there in our platoon could never fucking make it in the Rangers,
Right.
And any group you go with, there's all the people you don't like that you work with right now, it's gonna still have that, It's just as they go closer to the top, there's a selection process. They get rid of that shit.
Right.
Anyways, when I was in Yemen, that's when I started watching the Magpul DVDs, and at first I was like, and then I was like, holy fuck, they're shooting so fast, and I'm like, how do they do that? I'm like, wait a second, did he hit the target with his pistol? And then they started explaining stuff, and and I think that's probably when I more went into an analytical brain. I mean, maybe I could credit the military with that, because when you're forced to do stupid shit, you think of why it's stupid and how it could be better. Right. So that is every day in the military. And so analyzing the Magpul DVDs and seeing okay, set aside my ego, is this better? And I was like, damn, they're fucking way more skilled than we are. Way more.
Right.
And learning new concepts that we just didn't have, and I was like, okay, this is cool. These are the guys that I want to strive to be like as a shooter. And so I was into that, And then when I got back, my buddy Derek Fuxa, that's his real name, all right? It's not a nickname, or maybe it's pronounced Fuxa, but we call him Fuxa, so.
Yeah, that's all right.
He was a corpsman. He was like, you got to check out James Yeager, right? And he's actually an alumni.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah, he's out in Texas. But so at first when I watched Yeager, it was back up a second. I was into what parts the AR-15 needs, what trigger goes in the gun, and I was like, because I was like, well, that cool shit on their gun need that stuff to make me good, right? And when I started watching James, he's like, what the fuck are you doing? Buy a Glock 19. And I'm like, well, the 6.3 Tony, but derp, and the 1911 trigger. And so I'm like in my brain arguing with him. I never got online and started shit talking, but like, I'm like, nah, you don't know what you're talking about, right? In my brain. And then when I saw a video, and I kept watching more, but when I saw a video and he went like, you guys are all following the idiot principles. We teach mindset, tactics, skills, then gear. You guys are going gear, skills, tactics, mindset. And I was like, an analytical brain went, yeah, I am. I am. And so I started watching more, and then started watching stuff with SOE, and then that's when my brain started turning, and it changed. And then when I went to Okinawa, Japan, that's when I started thinking about, getting out. Because originally I was like, my plan was like, okay, re-enlist, but go to, some job where I am an instructor. That way I get good at instructing. Then later I can become an instructor in the civilian world and do like what James does.
Right.
So that's...
That was the journey to
your
it.
question.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, yeah. But I do want to actually talk about one thing that you brought up. It's not on the notes, but I think that being able, and it's something that a lot of people struggle with, is that self-reflection. Like you talked about when James said the gear, that this and that, he listed it backwards, right? I think that a lot of people struggle with being able to take information that is completely counter to what they have been teaching themselves and stuff, and be able to be like, oh, shit, yeah, I am doing that. Yeah.
Yes.
Most people just double down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And on that note, it's like, one thing I always like to bring up, I saw a video a long time ago with Mookie where he was like, dude, when you tell a guy that he doesn't know what he's talking about with guns, you are attacking his masculinity.
Yeah.
Right? Because, what does it mean to be masculine? Well, for a dude that's into guns, it means I'm able to shoot bad guys with guns real good.
Right.
And I understand what guns are best, and I'm good at it, right? And then when you go, hey, bro, you're going to slice your thumb open with that grip you have on your pistol, and, you don't need a better trigger to actually hit the target, and like, hey, you should take a training class. That's all an attack on their masculinity.
Yeah.
So... just like you've been dealing with YouTube comments, and you're doing a very great job of being a positive person on it, which I can't think of anyone who's doing a better job at that. And I'm like, okay, I should reanalyze how I do it.
Yeah, it's all AI. I don't come up with it.
Right. But it's like, you see that, and also it's like, you talk to a dude, you're like, yeah, they're like, well, you take all these classes? I'm like, yeah. And then you shoot with them, and you shoot way better than him, and you're like, yeah, you should take a class. And they're still like, I've been shooting my whole life.
Right.
And then they say some retarded shit about how this caliber's better, and and they're like, look at this gun, and you're like, those break in your brain. You don't even say it. You don't even say it, but you're like, my gun's better than your gun. And you're like, and you're like, what class have you taken it through? Because that bitch would be fucking broken.
Right. Yep.
And that holster would fly off.
Dude.
But it's like, if you say that, even it's like, that's a real hard thing, is how you approach that, of like showing them that there's a better way, and it's like, thinking about it, the best thing you can possibly do is just be the influence, like live that life, that's the way I think it should be. And now what I've tried to do if I'm answering comments and stuff, is I try to approach it like Socratically, like ask a question, like, you know, instead of being like, this is the answer, you're wrong, just ask them a question that makes them think about it and just be totally logical, even as they're getting emotional. And I know you tell them. What did you say about how whether or not you determine if you're going to talk to them at all?
I don't remember what I said.
It was something along the lines of like once they start name calling.
Oh yeah. No, so yeah, once they cross the line, so I try to talk to them as if they're peers, right? Even if they disagree with me, so try to talk to them as if they're peers. But when they cross that line of where it goes from them defending their point to attacking you, that's when you realize like you're not getting through to that person,
right?
You know, and that's when I shift from we are peers to apologies. I thought we were peers, and I was talking to you that way. Obviously, we're not. Yeah. Like, have a good day.
You're such a fucking good dude. I can't. I always just took the shortcut. I go, all right, what training do you have? And then they're like, press button faster. And I go, okay, that's not the question I asked. And they'll be like, and I go, so you have no training, you know?
Right, yeah.
That's a much better
it takes
approach.
all kinds. It takes all kinds. There's got to be the guys out there that are calling people out, like, explicitly for their bullshit. And then there's got to be people out there trying to, like, mix and mold and mash their, like, you know.
Yeah, and like, a thing I've been thinking about, too, is, like, there needs to be a little bit of quote-unquote gatekeeping, but it's more, like, in the terms of validation, verifying. There's a word I'm missing. I haven't gotten any sleep this weekend. It'll come to me later, and I'll be like, dummy, you should have said this word. But, like, you know, just, like, there's a lot of things that are taught, a lot of things that are said, and I basically call it, like, most the gun community is becoming NPCs, where they just repeat a thing that the cool guy said, and they haven't put thought into it. They haven't analyzed. So that needs to happen. And you know, if I think too, when people have a voice and you see where it's coming from, but even like, hey, dude, like, you don't fucking have to have any training to understand the fact that, like, maybe it'd be better to just be real competent with a loaded gun than to be the guy who has to unload a gun to be safe with it.
Right. Yeah.
And, like, you don't even have to think that fucking hard about it to realize, well, basically, you know, if it's me and Joey out there, as long as I don't press the trigger while I'm pointing it at Joey, we will be okay.
Yep.
And so I'll just keep my finger off when I'm not shooting, and I'll just not point it at Joey.
Wow. That's crazy. Instead
of unloading it and just doing that shit. And then, well, you know, it ended up being load that time, right?
Yep.
So I'm not saying that, like, you have to have a fucking badass resume to be able to say stuff. But I do think that, like, when people do start saying stuff, it's like you have to look at where it's coming from.
Right.
And I go down the rabbit hole on that, but
go
ahead with what you got.
No, the last thing I'll say about it, just to kind of tie that all together, is, and it touches on what I was saying, most people lack that self-reflection.
Right.
And Jay said it. I really enjoyed this quote from him. He said, we're all victims of our own experiences. You know? And I think that that's an excellent way of looking at it. Like, those dudes have their ways that they were taught, and they are set in those ways.
Yeah.
And to take it even further back, on the hallway out there is an article printed in SWAT magazine that James wrote about dogmatic doctrine. And even back then in the early 2000s, he was like, hey guys, like, why are we so fixated on holding on to these things that were taught 20 years ago, right? Like, just because something's old doesn't mean that it's good. And I'm not advocating for change for the sake of change, but when new stuff comes to light, like, we should seriously examine it and see if it's worth anything.
Yes.
You know? And I think that from now on, like, when I get that dude who, like, crosses that line, I think I'll just send him a link, because we have that article on our website as well. I'll just send him a link to that
That's
article.
very smart. You should do a video on that too.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, for real. And something Sonny said in class was you need to, like, re-examine everything, including the things that you believe are 100% true.
Right.
Okay. So, like, now with him, I went down the rabbit hole of when is it okay to break the firearm safety rules,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you know, for instance, you know, just real basic, when you unload your gun to do dry fire or just dry practice, guess what? You're not treating it like it's loaded, because you wouldn't be pointing it at that thing right now in your house pressing the trigger.
Right.
Your brain knows the difference.
Yeah.
You know, don't let your muzzle cross anything you do not intend to destroy. Whereas I teach it is keep your gun pointing in a safe direction. Right. You think your hostage shot is going to be a good hostage shot if you try to do that?
Yeah.
You know?
Like if you try to like
Yeah.
come from
Like,
way
hang
over
on.
here. Yeah.
like they know what you're doing.
Right.
Keep your finger off the trigger, right? Think about like the Tooler drill. If there's a dude with a knife right there, like which looks scarier?
Right. Exactly.
You know, and then if we're, you know your target ways beyond, if we're on patrol, because there's no rule of law, and we're wearing cool guy kit, and the bushes start shooting at us, we can't see what's in the bushes. We can't see what's beyond the bushes. We definitely know rounds are going to go through the bushes somewhere. Are you going to sit there and let them shoot you until you get positive identification?
Right.
You know, and then I want to do a whole thing on that.
Yeah, you should.
But basically, you know, it's like instead of thinking about rules, think about like outcomes is where I went to with it. So what's an acceptable outcome? What was an unacceptable outcome? And there's risk and there's gambles.
Right.
But yeah, and yeah, dogmatic. You know, Pat Mack has the phrase institutional inbreeding, but I still feel like people who use that phrase, they all have that still. You know, they haven't analyzed everything in a big hurdle, I will say. Not necessarily, it's a little bit of a problem, but I just think it's a thing we all need to get over is with the dudes that do a lot of training, there's too much of training within their circle, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you and I are in the same circle.
Right.
Like we try to send students to each other, and like I fucking love coming here to take classes
Right.
and everything. But it's like how many of our guys have gone over to like the performance shooters, like taken classes from dudes that are really good competition shooters. You know, hey, they do a bunch of shit that I think is retarded.
Right.
But they could probably teach me to shoot my gun faster, more accurately, right?
Right.
They're probably better at that than me because that's all they do.
Yeah.
Right. And hey, those guys, they should probably come here and see what it's like to get shot in force on force.
Right.
See what it's like to do medical while there's bad guys out there, you know. See the mindset stuff, because there's like, you know, the way I think about it, the stuff that like you guys teach, the stuff that I teach, when we're talking about like a gunfight type class, yes, there are processes we're teaching as far as how to keep gun running, how to hit target, how to use cover, but we're also teaching a lot of decision making, like within the mindset stuff. There is mindset stuff as far as like what to do in this fight, outcomes, you know, what's your line in the sand type stuff, but it's also like, okay, you know, like for instance with medical, like that dude has blood spraying out of his arm, that dude has blood oozing out of his leg, that dude's making crazy sounds and his chest is doing something scary. Now, what order are we going to handle this?
Figure
and
it
how
out.
are you going to handle it? Because there's also many ways we could fix each thing, but what's important now, big phrase, right? I think that came from John Farnham. Just like, you know, rifle goes down, I have pistol, cover there, how far is the guy, stuff like that.
Right,
Decision
exactly.
making, because that's a hard thing.
Yeah.
And then again, guys outside of this circle, how much force on force have they done? Because like that is the most humbling thing.
Right.
And I'm sure we'll get to that. So, but
No,
go ahead.
No. Well, okay, we'll just jump right into the next one then. So you brought up James a lot, helping you find your path toward this instruction stuff. So twofold question: what from the early videos with James about his like specific approach made you want to start teaching people, and then what about the SOE stuff where you like what from John where you made you be like, oh, I could make some cool shit too, you know?
Right. Okay. So with James, I think it was all right. He took me and humbled me in a way where I saw, okay, I thought I was good. Then I saw the Magpul stuff, and I thought I had it figured out, and then I got changed again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he took me from that point, like, of all this ego, and flipped my brain around to wanting to learn more, reanalyze stuff, and seeing this new gunfight philosophy. And also, like, there were things like, he said in a video, like, I believe that the average civilian should be able to own belt-fed machine guns and AT-4 rocket launchers. And I was not a person who believed that at that time. And I was like, why the fuck should I not be able to? Right? And then there was a video where he talked about, like, just carry your gun. He's like, all right, if the government told you couldn't have a seatbelt on, would you wear your seatbelt? I fucking hope you would, right? And I was like, damn. I'm kind of lame. I'm like, 'cause that's really, really cool. The word base wasn't around, but it was base.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think it was a lot of that mindset stuff. Because when you get hit with a mindset thing, it's totally different than, like, oh, this way to reload does this, better,
Yeah.
And so it's like, it kind of makes you look at the whole big picture. So I think it was that he was hitting me with big picture stuff. I also really dug how he was taking dudes, just civilians, right? Because, I consider myself a Marine, right?
Right.
Now I consider myself a civilian. I get once Marine, always Marine. I don't have to put on camouflage.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not shaving or getting haircuts anymore. Like I'm a civilian now. All right.
Yeah.
And so he was taking dudes just like working normal jobs and getting them doing cool guy stuff, because again, in the beginning, I just wanted to be a cool guy, right? And but then I also thought, I was like, these guys are probably getting some really good stuff because, like, of the mindset things, and it just appeared like a shining light in the tunnel. It was like I saw more truth there, and also because he wasn't military, I was like, damn, and he's accomplished all this. Look at all those students, and look at how good his videos are and everything. I was just super, super impressed by it, I think. And I was like, man, if he can do that, I should try to do that. With John, his hustle. I consider, like, John my favorite business owner, simply because of his rock bottom and building himself back up. It's how many things did you have happen that was the worst thing in your life, and then something worse happened?
Right.
And every time it's like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. Jocko Willink had a video where he's talking about his daughter having, like, a boy that she liked, not like her, something, little kid, and you're like, for us, we're like, who cares?
Right. Yeah.
Like, oh no, that and when you're dating, it's like, that's a Tuesday,
Right. Yeah.
But for her, that's the worst thing that ever happened to her.
Exactly. But it's funny that you brought up the early YouTube stuff, because, like, when I go back and watch my old ones, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe I did that. James would talk about how his YouTube videos, the early ones, were hard or iffy for him to watch and stuff. And then, like, the multiple takes, again, like, it is a running joke with how how many takes it's going to take me to get the job done here. So anyway, it's one of those things that people don't realize it, but it is a skill.
Yeah.
And the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Right. Right.
So
yeah, so I would just, like, start over, and I'd be like, there's somewhere out there when the government went through my files, they just see videos of me going, fuck, and starting over, But it's like, when I talked to James about it, he's like, I do one take for everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, how? How do I gain this power? And it's like, you gain it by doing it,
Yeah. He told me that because, I mean, I was recording videos while he was still alive, and so he knew that I was doing multiple takes. He's like, man, like, I'm not telling you not to, but like don't worry about that stuff too much.
Yeah.
And I still worry about it. I can't help it.
Yeah, but there's authenticity to fucking up,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's like, okay, what, someone's gonna call me out because I said the wrong word one time, and like, all right, post let me see you post 500 videos, and
Right.
let's see what happens. You know?
Yeah. No. Absolutely. Well, since you started the YouTube channel and stuff like that, do you have any like standout moments from it, like a comment where you were like, "Oh, people are getting it," or your first video that did well, or anything like that?
Well, all right. So, first video that did well, I'm gonna be redoing, and I'm
Okay.
gonna make a bunch of shorts on it. And it's funny because like I feel like yeah, I'll just say I was, because I haven't seen anyone else who was saying it. Maybe James mentioned it a little bit, but I did a video called "Don't Buy 300 Blackout."
Okay.
Now, the message in it is that, okay, if you buy a 300 Blackout gun, obviously you're going to buy a silencer, and you're probably going to buy a set of sights for subsonic and for supersonic, okay? Now, then you look at the price of that ammo, and it was during COVID when ammo was crazy, of course, right? But it was like, all right, one case of 300 Blackout ammo in general, it would be like you can buy 2 cases of 5.56 or 3 cases of 7.62 by 3.9. I know it's more expensive than 223 now, okay? But my thing with that is, okay, when you break down like how much you're spending on that stuff, it's like, okay, if you were to just buy one of the normal guns, you could buy more ammo, and then it's easier to take training classes. Then you get to practice what you learn and press the trigger with real bullets more. You will become more deadly, more useful than the dude with a quiet gun,
right?
Who sucks, right?
Yeah.
So because it's like we have money, we have time, we have focus and energy and all that. You know, if you take that and think about what's actually going to make you better, a quiet gun doesn't do that. Now, guys are making videos and they're showing the ballistics. I didn't talk about the ballistics. Everyone commented on the ballistics.
Of course.
And I said, did I say anything bad about the ballistics? No, because I didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
I just said you don't need it. And it's funny, too, because people were calling me a FUD for that. I believe I should have hand grenades on my body right now.
Right.
Like, I should. And I also believe, and I didn't see anyone say this, but I won't claim total credit for it. But I remember putting out videos about, they were just shorts, they were more recent, about how background checks are bullshit. Okay, you shouldn't have to do a background check to buy a gun. And people are like, whoa, that's crazy, because then criminals will get them. They have them. They get them. They steal them. You know, they buy them illegally. You know, they can get them.
Right.
My simple thing is, again, I don't like group punishment. So if we don't trust this guy to have a gun, why did we let him out of jail? Because he can get it. All right. And then we can look at lots of people that are not allowed to buy guns that were like, why? He's a great person. And the thing he went to jail for is stupid.
Right.
And they're still not allowed to buy them. You know, so I just think, you know, it goes into a different subject, prison reform and everything. But like, I think like, hey man, if they've done their punishment, they should be allowed to be like us. But the 300 Blackout one, now guys are doing videos on. They're showing that the ballistics suck on it, and I didn't even talk about that. I was just like, dude, it's stupid because it's way more expensive to shoot that gun, and I don't care how much money you have. Like there's a certain threshold you reach where it's like it doesn't matter.
Right.
I'm sure there's a dude who has like a room full of ammo, but then there's also things like people talk about like, oh, well, I reload ammo. It's like, no, you spend 2 days making ammo. That's a job.
Yeah.
And then your ammo's not that good. Yeah,
I mean, yes.
So that one did real well, and that was kind of like, I mean, people took it as a negative video. I wasn't trying to be negative. I just said that reloading is dumb, and you don't need a super quiet gun. When I say you don't need it, people think I'm saying you shouldn't have it. No. Like, I don't need a super fancy car, you know. I don't need a modern car. I could, you know, I got a 98 4Runner. Love that thing. Right. But I'm not saying it's bad to have it.
Yeah.
But like, you know, you spend 70 grand on a more newer car, then there's other things you can't put that money into, you know. So that's kind of the focus of it.
Yeah.
And then more recently, the videos that did real well was like talking about how you should just be competent with a loaded gun. Like I said, if you have to unload a gun to be safe with it, like if you pick up a gun and immediately unload it, you don't actually understand firearm safety.
Right.
Because there's the 4 rules. None of them even talk about. Well, I guess it does. It says treat every gun as if loaded. None of them say unload it.
Exactly. Yeah.
and again, like I'll say, there's times where it would be you could reach an unacceptable outcome by even following all 4 rules, right? But you can still be safe with it. Like, you know.
I think I like what Jay was probably in an argument online with somebody like he does, and he came up to me and he said, you know what, I realized people want to unload their gun so they can ignore that first safety rule and all of the ones after it. You know, and I think you kind of clarified it even more. Like if you have to unload your gun, it's because you don't understand what the 4 firearm safety rules actually mean.
Right.
I really think that that's on point.
Yeah. And so there with the comments I got on that one, I had people like, you're stupid, you should quit, blah blah blah. You're ugly and nobody likes you.
I've gotten those.
Your Forerunner's old. But then I made a few more on it because I'm like, oh, this is doing good. And I want that message out there.
Right.
Then I had people go, you know what? I thought you were an idiot, but I agree now.
Yeah.
Like, I should just be good with a loaded gun. Just check it out. When you use your gun, it's loaded. So you should probably be good at being safe with it when it's loaded.
Right. Yeah.
And so, like, on that subject, where I'm at on it right now is, like, first, need to teach them the 4 rules. Get them to follow 4 rules. Then get them to memorize verbatim 4 rules. That's a deeper level of understanding, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, everyone works it a little bit different.
I would change it to just fundamentally understand.
Yeah.
The 4, because you can memorize something and not.
No, because I think memorize, though every word has meaning. That's where I'm coming at it with with that. So I think, because all right, how many times have you taught a class or been in a class and they go, all right, what are the 4 rules? And people are going,
right.
Okay, that's a problem. Like that's a problem.
Yeah.
I've taken classes where the instructor went over the rules and forgot one.
Right. Okay.
And that's a real big problem.
Right.
Because he just told everyone how to conduct themselves safely on the range, and he didn't mention not point the gun at me.
Right.
So I say memorize them verbatim. Like if I go, what's rule number 1? You should be able to say treat every gun as if it were loaded. Or you guys put, I think, keep your finger off the trigger first, and then I'm not gonna get into that.
We mix it up every time.
Yeah, and that's fine. But yeah, follow them, memorize them, and then enforce them, or be ready to walk away. Because like, I've been shooting my whole life. You can't tell me what to do. Now I'm angry, frustrated, and my ego's attacked, and I'm going to be shooting around you.
Yeah.
You should be ready to walk away. I walked away before. And then get them used to keeping the guns loaded all the time. Hot range. And then I think they need to get exposed to downrange rules and downrange drills and just understand that, hey, that's a real world. You can follow the 4 rules and everything's fine.
Right. Yes.
I believe that if you're carrying a gun out in public, you should have done downrange drills and you should be confident in doing them.
Yeah. And I think I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think that more people are starting to understand that than there was in the past.
Oh yeah.
Of course, people still freak out about it online, but there have been a few people, and I don't know if they put it out on the internet, but there are a few like reputable instructors that I did not expect to be like cool or even think that downrange stuff was beneficial, that have told me that they think people should do those things more often. Of course, it's always followed up with, don't do anything unsafe, but what is it? The first time you go to point your gun at somebody and there's other people around, it shouldn't be in the actual event. You know?
Yeah.
So I think people are starting to understand that.
Yeah, kids. I mean, you have people who come to class and they've been shooting their whole lives, but they're nervous that there's people around them now. They're pulling a gun out of a holster. They're online too. Yeah. Like we're using the firing line right now. But they're nervous about that because they've never carried a loaded gun on their body. Yeah. And now, if they were to have to shoot a bad guy in public, there's probably going to be a lot of people around.
Yeah. And not online.
Yeah. And I got a buddy who is I took a class. We were both students. I had a wrestling class, and he's on a SWAT team. And he talked about how there was an officer that was dealing with a hostage situation, and he wouldn't take the shot. He would not take the shot, and they had to wait for SWAT guys to get there to take care of it. So, like, how that time matters. Yeah. Like James said, that tactics are basically, like, there's opportunities for you to shoot the bad guy and opportunities for you to get shot, right? Like, when we break it down, that's kind of like what we're doing. We're trying to create opportunities for us to shoot the bad guy and not get shot. And he worded it differently. Okay. but if you think about that, the dude dealing with the hostage situation could have ended in so many bad ways because he did not act. All right. Right. And now just simply people being around would definitely keep people from acting. And I got drills where we kind of go over that, and that's what the students are like. I'm like, hey, which safety rule did we break? And then they're like, the firing line. I'm like,
right, yeah.
Where's that firing line at the sketchy gas station you stopped out on the way here?
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I hope I'm correct when I say I think that people are coming around on that.
They are. And here's the thing, man. Like, all of our people need to do a better job of talking about it. Hey, everyone talks shit on Lucas Bakken, T-Rex Arms. You know what? Lucas has done a lot of things, for this industry. Yeah. And one of the things that he talks about is we need to normalize gun ownership. Like, we should normalize the idea of having an AR-15 in your car. Normalize the idea of civilians owning grenade launchers and belt-fed machine guns. Like stuff like that. So normalizing the idea of keeping a gun loaded, understanding, if you follow the 4 rules, you're perfectly safe. And the concept of downrange drills. Like, people say, oh, well, that's for force on force. There's no consequences other than being embarrassed in force on force. And it does work. There's an effect to it. Like, I have shot the wrong person in force on force, and it fucking crushed me. Yeah. And I'm so thankful for that. Okay. But it's still not the same. Your brain recognizes the difference between a paint rocking round and a bullet that can kill someone. Yeah. And not trying to, dude, like, you got to go at your own pace, but you need to also recognize that if you have never done it, your first time would be when lives are on the line, possibly the lives that matter most to you.
Exactly. I mean, we don't have to keep beating that to death, but yes, it cannot be stressed enough that it's not a thing that you're doing in your intro to pistol course or anything like that, of course. But there is a time where that line needs to be
and it just awaken it in their brains.
Yeah.
But yeah, so seeing guys come around on the loaded guns thing, that was like, dude, because I don't give a shit if I reach everyone. I don't want everyone.
Right. Yeah.
In fact, like, when we look at, like, the way people vote, basically half the population I don't want in my class,
right?
Because they don't want me to have a gun in the first place.
Yeah.
Now we need to reach them too. I'm not the guy who wants to do that. Someone else should be doing that. Colin Noir, he does a great job.
Yeah.
Give him support.
I can't remember the guy. Oh, I met him at Train and Learn. Tony is his name, but I can't remember his full name. I wish I could give him shout outs. Great dude. And but I believe he's up in the Chicago area, and they do a diversity shoot every year. And so, I mean, it is literally that, where they're like people who would normally be opposed to guns. It's just a chance for them, like a very chill, no pressure kind of environment, to just go to the range and actually try shooting guns. And you know what happens 99% of the time when you let someone shoot a gun? They're like, oh, there's a comedian who has a good bit about how guns are like babies. Like until you hold one, you don't really get it. But then you hold one and you're like, I get it now. You know?
That's so true. But that's also true in the fact that some people treat their gun like it's their baby. Don't let this thing get scratched now.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't you talk bad about my baby.
Yeah, we just don't. Never mind. Sorry. But so my favorite thing to talk about with other instructors is, what is your reason or most fulfilling reason for continuing to teach and stuff like that? And I'll go first because I have such a cop-out answer.
Yeah.
But it is the light bulb moments.
Yeah,
so,
I get it. Yeah.
So kind of like when you're talking about those dudes who come around with the loaded gun thing in your comments, like whenever I have a student, even if they're not resistant to the ideas, but they're just trying to understand them and grasp them, when you see that moment of like they go to grab their mag, but they don't have one, and they've already ejected this one. And I know it's a crushing moment sometimes, but when they go, I know, I get it now, right? Like I understand that.
Bro,
like that's what I'm here for.
I never thought of that moment as a light bulb moment.
Mm-hmm.
I never did. I always put that in like a negative category of like, it's like, yeah, you're gonna learn the hard way right now, you know?
Yeah.
But that is so
it's
true.
It's a lesson learned.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I have some drills where it's designed, it's like, hey, if you put your finger on the trigger during this part, like, I'm going to yell fight, and everyone's going to shoot. And it's, you know, kind of trying to teach them, like, the discipline between off and on, and, anyway, that gets real autistically in depth. But yeah, no, that's totally true. There's also, like, because I got drills where I'm like, hey, guys, I'm letting you know right now, bring a new mag up to the gun before you get rid of the old one. If you don't, I'll yell fight.
Right.
And then it's like, they're like, and then I go fight, and they're like, But you're right. That is a light bulb moment. They go, oh, I wish I had a mag in my gun right now. Yeah, dude, that's great. For me, I think, I really love it when a student is like, dude, I was scared. Now I'm gonna carry this thing loaded. Yeah. You know, because they don't want to have a gun. Dude, people are afraid of printing.
Right.
I'm like, well, I actually, it's kind of like I was talking to Zach Bush, and he's like, open carry is not necessarily always bad, because it is like, well, I'm not going to rob that guy. That's obvious, you know. There's bad things about it, sure. But, like, I've personally had it where, like, a dude, late at night wearing a COVID mask came up. Hey, man, your beard's so cool. Wants to talk me up, butter me up. And he keeps doing this. Because I was printing hard as fuck. Like, G45, just sticking out there, and he keeps doing this. And then he gets around to it, like, hey, can I borrow $20? And I go, I can. And he goes, all right.
Yeah, I get it.
And so, like, but yeah, people are afraid of just, like, somebody seeing that they have a gun.
Right.
You know? And I'll tell you another story after this about it, but it's funny. I just don't want on the podcast. You can ask me personally what it was. It involves a Ford Ranger. Okay, he just asked me about the Ford Ranger story. But yeah, the students they'll come, and they're scared of the gun, they're struggling, and like I can think of a student I had, student Ashley, and she was scared of the gun, and but then she took pistol skills, and there's a drill in there where basically I teach them, like, when you close your eyes and press the trigger, then open your eyes, your sights should still be on the target, the gun's aligned in your hand, you have a straight trigger press, you're keeping the gun still, all that. And then those little circles on that target, I had her shoot all of those with her eyes closed just to verify that she was gripping and pressing the trigger good and everything. And she was, just super struggle, like, afraid of gun,
right?
Like, doesn't know what she's doing. So it's like she's taking a lot of information.
Yep.
And she cleaned those.
Nice.
And then at the end of the class, she's like, "Thank you." I'm like so much more confident, and now I'm like, yeah, I can carry a gun. I'm like, good,
Yeah.
And now take more classes, to take more. It's funny too, because like James always said, the first class, the number one class you take with us is fighting pistol, and I'm like, guys, go take the fighting. Go take that. You'll want to take more.
Yeah. Dude, the confidence boosting is another big aspect of it. Like when we have and it's particularly females. who are like, I just want to get more comfortable
Yeah.
with it. And like by the end of day 2, when they're like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
like this, I'm very happy with
Yeah.
with holding this and confident and stuff. Like that's another real good, like that's another reason. And it outside of women, new gun owners. There was a dude who showed up, gun still in box. He's like, I
Yeah.
bought this 2 weeks ago, and I want to learn how to shoot.
Hang on, is this loaded?
But we took that dude by the end of day 2 fighting pistol. He was like, yes, I feel confident enough to protect myself with this thing now. Yeah, that's another big one. I agree with you.
I think tactical response gave me was like, just carry it everywhere, you know.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that I got from here. That I was like, hey man, like thank you guys, you know, like because they're not. We weren't always. No one was like, oh yeah, fucking taking my gun there, carrying it everywhere, no matter what, you know. And that's something I got from here, and I'm like, yeah, that was a big thing for me, and the confidence that was a confidence thing for me.
Yeah. So speaking of tactical response, because that's who we are, we talk about mindset, how important that is, and everything like that. What would you, when you think of mindset, and how do you teach your students, like what it means to have a proper mindset whenever it comes to this lifestyle, martial lifestyle, I guess is a good way of putting it.
I think it mostly comes back to like, what can you live with? So when I teach use of force, I talk about legal, what are you allowed to do? Tactical, what should you do? And then moral, what can you live with? And those can all be conflicting at once, but it really comes back down to that last one, what can you live with, right? And that goes into your beliefs, your religion, how people will look at you. You know, there's a lot of things that go into that. So, like I don't like people like, if I'm trying to get them to take a drill seriously, and then they start clowning around when they totally fuck up, and then totally, fuck up every part of,
Right.
gripping the gun crazy, drawing it crazy, and then sling shots without really lining up the sights, and then they laugh about it, and I go, and it's like, all right, you would not be laughing right now if you were protecting your child. Because man, I love having fun.
Right.
We know that.
Yeah.
We all joke around, but there's times in class where it's like, you need to take that stoic approach, and also you need to think about like, if we're in the fight right now. So that's also a part of where I'm like, the mindset thing is like, all right, like first shop class, I will do like, 2 brain shots, whatever distance you want, and it's like, hey guys, take that seriously. You knew this was coming. That was your performance, right? So like, you need to think about that. And it's the biggest thing is what can you live with? And I think that's the big picture of where all the mindset things that I talk about kind of lead back to, and that essentially
dude,
that.
I dig it. I hadn't heard it broke down like that before, but I think that's an excellent way of describing it for sure.
What is an acceptable and an unacceptable outcome? Who are you willing to kill, die, go to the hospital, or go to jail for?
Yeah, and then decide accordingly, or make your decisions according to that philosophy.
And shout out to Kayla too, because like I've had discussions with her, and I'm like, and she's like, no, and I'm like, but, and she's like, okay, think about this, and I go, fuck. Like she's a great person to talk to with that.
Oh stuff. Yeah, for sure. No, Kayla's great, but I mean, and to touch on the mindset of training, like as a student, right? Being able to know and separate when is a drill or an exercise, whatever you want to call it, like when is it a time to joke and have a good time and stuff like that, and when is this being taken seriously. And Kayla, when she teaches the medical class, she does a very good job of like defining those two things. She's like, hey guys, it's day 1, we're learning these skills and everything like that. I want you to have a good time, I want you to have fun, because we do a lot of light scenario based stuff in our medical class, and so she's like, but day 2, we're done joking, we're done laughing. Like, when you are role playing, you are role playing actively, and when you're treating a role player, you are treating them as if this is that hurt person and stuff like that, you know. So she makes like a clear, concise, like just flat out tells them when to separate those two things, you know. And that's one way of handling it, but there's also another way of kind of like, as a student, you should be aware of whenever an instructor says something like, hey guys, like, we're gonna do a cold drill first round out of the gun, and we're going for that brain shot, right? Like, yeah, you should be like, oh shit, yeah, like you should be able to realize this may be my shot.
Right,
and it's maybe all I get. I should probably take this serious.
Yeah, and like, and that's because I love joking, and that's a problem for me. So
same.
So I have to be very active on that, and it's the like the big tone change, you know, and like you know, I once in a while I'll yell at a student.
Yeah.
Mostly I don't. I don't. It's more along the lines of like, all right, this is the 37th time you fucking point the gun at you.
Right.
Now I'm trying to yell. You know, I don't let it go that far. All right. But it's like everything else is not working. I try to leave it as a last resort. Or as this drill, I'm trying to induce some stress.
Right.
So then a little bit of yelling will happen. But even in then, I think, hey, all right, guys, I'm going to try to stress you out. Just focus on the process. What are you doing? You're leaning out from a barrel, shooting a piece of paper with a gun in your hand. That's all you're really doing. Nothing else matters. You know?
Right, no matter what I say. It's about to get real dark.
Well, and so with the mindset stuff too on the dark part, that is a place I like to go to. Because that's the reality. We're trying to prevent darkness. So we need to face darkness. We need to think about what that really is, you know? Because, again, that fucking darkness could happen on your drive home today. It could be a car accident. And, you know, it like, because, again, that's why I tell people to take medical. Like, they're like, oh, no, I've done blah, blah, blah. I'm like, hey, dude, like, if fucking a car came and slammed into your car on the way home and your whole family's in there, are you going to be able to save them?
Right.
Are you? You know? So yeah, recognizing darkness too. That's a big one.
It is, and I think that there's a lot of there's some places out there that do a good job at like driving that point home. There's two things from the range master classes I've taken, and one of them was with Akil. I mean, it was really his class, but he does a lot of stuff from the range master curriculum from what he was talking about. I could be misconstruing it, but anyway, they both of them said, like, they asked the class this question. They say, hey guys, like, why do we carry a gun, right? And of course we carry a gun to save somebody, right? Or protect somebody. And that's a lot of the general answers that get thrown out. And then they always follow it up with, okay, well, think about it this way. You carry a gun because you might have to shoot someone in the fucking face today, you know? Right?
Yeah.
And so I do think that, like, absolutely, the reason why we're carrying a gun is to save people. The way we may have to save somebody is by shooting a dude in the face. What advice would you give to someone who, you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, who is interested in things like this? Not just firearms training, but that as well. But they have this business they're wanting to start. They have this YouTube channel they're wanting to start, or any number of things. What kind of advice would you give to somebody like that? And do you have any resources that really helped you start your path?
First thing, cut out every naysayer.
Good.
First thing, because you're going to do it later if you actually start your thing. Anyone who is trying to convince you it will not work, stop talking to them. It's not a malicious thing. It could be your own family that is saying that, like, oh, you shouldn't do this. They care about you. They also don't see things the way you do. And even your own family can be trying to hold you down to their level. Okay? Your friends will try to hold you down to their level. How many of your high school friends do you hang out with?
Not very many.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And how many of them did you hang out with this week?
Oh, none of them.
Okay. All
yeah.
Right. So that happens throughout your life.
Yeah.
Anyone who is trying to convince you that it's not going to work, that you can't do it, that it's too hard, get rid of them. And it's this simple. I don't answer their calls anymore. I block their calls. You know, they're fucking, they might watch this. All right.
Right.
That was why, you know. that is going to be like, it's going to be fucking hard enough, and you're going to get those as you're trying to go through the process. Okay. Just cut that out. And then the first thing is just start doing it, start moving, start putting actions in place. Your actions are more important than your plan. If you're trying to plan it, at a certain point, you're procrastinating execution. So just start doing it. And this is for myself too.
Yeah.
Fucking, there's plenty of things I've overpromised to people, and I'm actually right now in the process of trying to fix that and like catch up on that. There's plenty of things where I'm like, I'm gonna get this thing done, haven't gotten it done, and really it's just like, instead of like that planning and saying I'm gonna do this thing, I should have just been doing other things. But also there's been things like times where, like I said, I used to go to the gym to procrastinate actually getting work done, and then it would become, when I was working at home, I would make my home spotless before getting my work done. You need to get the work done first. I've heard other business people say, like, you know, like the first half of my day is dedicated towards my business, towards making money, you know, and like the other thing is, you shouldn't be getting into anything to make money. But also, you know, that money's important, you know, like, don't give people shit for free because they don't value it.
Right.
You know, like if I give someone free gear, they probably won't appreciate it that much. But when they buy that shit, they're like, I love this thing. If you give someone free training, they don't value it as much. You know, they just don't, because they didn't have to work for it.
Psychology, man.
Yeah. And so it's like you'll literally waste time doing that. Okay. Now, I'm not saying don't be charitable.
Right.
I'm not saying don't do good things for people, but that's different. If you're giving people stuff that they should have been paying for because you're begging them to like it, then that's wrong. Okay. But yeah. So cut out all negative shit. Start moving. And then don't be working for free. And you should have a good plan, but the plan should be a big picture type thing. Now, guys that you should be watching and listening to, John Willis is one of them. You can YouTube it and you'll find it. Andrew Tate has like the first 100 lessons. There's stuff in there I totally disagree with that I really don't like. Okay. But there's also really good stuff in there too. And, you know, kind of like I said, start moving. His first lesson is speed. All right. And you should listen to at least that part.
Right.
And you can see a lot of like John Willis in that too. But yeah, speed. But listen to that, the first 100 lessons from Andrew Tate. That's a good thing to listen to, I think, every couple months at least. Alex Hormozy is really good. Patrick Bet-David. And then Grant Cardone is good. I think probably one of the best things you can listen to is the MFCEO project, the old school one from Andy Frisella. He now has Real AF. The old version is the MFCEO project. That's the one you should go and listen to. You can listen to the new stuff too, but the new stuff's more about politics and current events. The old one's more about business.
Okay.
I think that, and then also you should try to find people doing the stuff you want to do and listen to them. You know, like, and you know, I don't even have to necessarily talk to James to get fucking business advice. I could just look at, he's doing that thing. That makes sense. I should do that thing. That's why, like, you know, I started a YouTube channel and kind of formatted my videos. I totally stole it from him. You know, I'm not trying to be him, but it's like, you're retarded to not look at him and go, he's doing good thing, I should do that good thing.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. No. I have a few things that to touch on, just some of your points you made. So when you talk about like cutting out the naysayers, it is, to take it a step further, surround yourself with positive people, people who are supporting you in this. So I'm a giant nerd. I don't hide it. And there is a video game I love, and it's called Stardew Valley. And it is a little farming simulator game. Heather loves it and stuff like that. Anyway, the dude, whenever he went to make it, he was like, it's going to take me 11 months to make this thing. 11 months turns into a year and a half.
Yeah.
And then it turns into 3 years. And then it turns into 6 years total, I think, before he actually released the game. The entire time, he's getting support from his family, from his girlfriend at the time and stuff like that. And I was listening to an audiobook, and he talks about how like he didn't know if he would have finished it if people were trying to hold him back from it. And dude's a multimillionaire now.
Yeah.
Because he had people support him through this thing that, but again, if he had people trying to tear him down the whole time, like where would he be now? Probably just programming at some other big company.
Right.
A regular 9-to-5 job. The science behind the promising things, what the studies show is when you talk about doing something, your brain releases the same chemicals,
the same dopamine,
as if you did the thing.
Yes, and that's the thing. I have some plans that we briefly talked about, and I've been like, I don't want to talk about it too much.
Right, exactly.
Because I won't get it done. Because I've had lots of really great plans, and we all know people who've had lots of really great plans,
right?
And that's exactly why.
Yeah. The investment thing, paying for something, it's the same thing with strength training. It's one of the first things that Matt was talking to us about, like all those years ago when I went to the squat seminar. He's like, I don't want you to spend a lot of money, but like buy something. Buy a set of squat shoes, buy some knee sleeves, do something, because as soon as you put money into a thing, your brain is like, oh, I don't want to waste that money I've invested in this thing. I better make use of it, right?
Right. It's the same thing with like, oh, I don't have the time, blah, 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 to make it to class. As soon as they buy it, everything else is in order.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And then emulate. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with finding the people out there who are doing that thing you love successfully and copying the things that they do.
Yeah.
In fact, you should.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing for if you aren't happy with how your life is going. Like imagine the life you want to live. Find someone who's living that life and figure out what they did to get there.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, and just start doing that thing.
Yeah. Schwarzenegger has like 10 rules of life or something. That's a good thing to listen to. But that's another thing he talked about. And again, cutting out naysayers. That's the same thing. Why the fuck are you listening to someone who has a life you don't want?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
It's like with shitty YouTube comments. You should quit now while you're behind. And I go like, okay, post a video of you shooting a drill.
Yeah.
I've probably asked that 1,000 times. None of them.
Yeah.
0.
Yeah. Just since you brought comments back up,
it's so fun.
You were talking about me being a nice guy.
Yeah.
Literally, the last video we put out, that the rifle one, just that came out on Friday. One of the comments was, "Oh wow, this guy's an instructor." ... Geez, something like that. And my first instinct was to be like, "Oh wow, this dude's a commenter." Gee, just copy it, but change it. But I didn't. But it was my instinct. I just had to fight that urge.
You know what's funny about that comment?
That was you?
No, I saw that comment and I replied to him, post a video of you shooting a drill.
Oh, shit. I didn't see your reply. That's so funny.
He didn't.
No, of course not. All right. Well, dude, let's close this thing out. Let's tell them where they can find you. Do you have any classes coming up? Merch, socials, just do a shameless plug right now. Look them in their soul.
Combat art training on YouTube, Instagram, kind of on TikTok. I've got 2 things on there, but I'm not active on it. Facebook. Most of my stuff you will find on YouTube. I'm going to start posting shorts again, reels to Instagram and Facebook. But YouTube's the best place to find me. There's like 500 videos. Most of them are shorts now, half of them at least. And I just caught up with all my online orders, and I shut them down. So now I'm going to do gear drops, combatarttraining.com. That's where you'll be able to buy gear. You want to watch YouTube to see when that stuff comes out. I kind of do it like John does. Be like, hey, this stuff's here. Classes coming up. I've got them on my website. The calendar is right there. I just put out Red Dot Pistol. We ran it for the second time here. And
good class.
And I'm happy with that curriculum.
Yeah,
now,
me too.
It's a different approach to a Red Dot Pistol class, because usually Red Dot Pistol classes are like fine dot, a bunch of stuff about how to shoot good, and then stuff about how the red dot works. So I'm taking a different approach of like target focus, fine dot, a little bit about your grip, because that makes finding the dot better, a little bit about trigger control, because that makes you see what's happening with the dot, and then more stuff about just using dot. It's primarily using dot. Like, I'll touch on shooting better, but that's more just so that you're better at finding the dot. For instance, whenever I take a Red Dot Pistol class, it's like about your draw stroke finding the dot. Okay, and then when we were doing it, was like, all right, now we're going to use cover. Now we're going to be moving. Now you're going to go from different positions that you would potentially have the gun in to finding the dot, stuff like that. But I'm really excited about that class. We are planning on I'd like to come back here. I think that'll be okay probably with you.
Well,
And then Kentucky also, the Tap Rack Ridge. I've been talking to them about going there, and then North Carolina, talking with them about coming over back there. So I'm gonna post dates and I'm gonna start traveling more, because a lot of people know me as a dude who makes gear. And I'm like, all right, you know the other thing I do?
Yeah.
Because I've taken like 100 hours of training this year,
right?
I teach classes, so the training is why I do this. Gear is to fund me being a firearms instructor,
right?
But yeah, combat art training. Just search for me there,
dude.
People are like, you have a business card? I'm like, I have 30,000 YouTube subscribers.
yeah. So yeah, guys, check them out. Again, we took the pistol class. I took your Red Dot Pistol class this past Friday. Fucking loved it. Even with all the heat, even though Lewis backed out, even though Tim backed out of the class, like,
well, it wasn't like it was like it was too hot for Tim, and Lewis had to deal with a shitty tenant.
Don't give him an excuse. Don't give him an excuse.
Well, I don't want them to think that they were like, fuck this class.
Oh yeah, okay, you're right. Yeah, you're right. So they had reasons. They had their own reasons that had nothing to do with the class. It was a fucking awesome class. If it's being hosted near you, fucking take that Red Dot class and anything else that Andrew offers. So, anyway, I don't know how to close it out, because this is going to be like a separate channel, and Heather did the first few.
Okay.
Yeah. Heather did the first interviews with Matt and them. So I don't know how to close this out, guys. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned, and I'm going to say it anyway. This is the way.
This is the way.